In today's video on academic integrity, we're going to cover some basic but very important concepts that you need to be familiar with on your road to becoming an ethical academic author. These concepts are citation, quotation, and referencing. And you may think you know about these concepts well enough already, but you need to be careful. In a study by Murray et al. Back in 2015, even students who rated themselves very highly as ethical authors and who indicated they'd had previous experience and training on issues of academic integrity sometimes found it difficult to distinguish between examples of work that contained instances of plagiarism and examples of work that had been legitimately authored. And this was because they didn't understand the concepts of citation, quotation and referencing quite as well as they thought they did. So let's clear up any misunderstandings or misconceptions you might have about what constitutes citation, quotation, referencing, and when you need to use them. Citation is something that you do to acknowledge the intellectual property of another author whose work you are describing in your own words. You can see an example of a citation on the screen now. Quotation is something that you do when you want to use the words of another author in your composition. You can see an example of a quotation on the screen now. Referencing is something you do so that the reader of your work can easily track down the sources that you've cited and that you've quoted in your work. You can see an example of a reference on the screen now. There are three main points you need to keep in mind with respect to citation, quotation and referencing, because it's confusion or ignorance about these points that tends to lead to people getting into trouble inadvertently. The first point is that you need to find out, as a matter of priority, which style of referencing your particular course requires you to use. There are a number of different styles of referencing. For example, I've been using the APA style of referencing in the examples that I've put on the screen. But that's one of several styles of referencing. There's things like Chicago style of referencing, the Harvard style of referencing, and more besides. You need to find out which one you're expected to use. And that's because the style of referencing dictates the exact formatting of your citations, your quotations, and your references. The second thing you need to bear in mind is that citation and quotation is not interchangeable. If you're using the words of another author in your composition, you must quote them. It's not enough to cite them, because don't forget, citation sends a message to the reader that you are describing the intellectual property of another author in your own words. So if you are, in point of fact, quoting them, and all you do is cite them, you're misleading the reader, and this would be considered an example of plagiarism. The third thing you need to remember is that anything you cited or quoted in the main body of your work needs a corresponding entry in the reference section for your work. If you remember these three things, you're off to a really good start with respect to becoming an ethical author. We'll cover some more advanced topics and some advice and guidance in future videos.